welcome everyone to Hot Program. I am your host with the most from the East Coast. It is your boy Pocketlocker, aka J Bundy, aka Purple Haze, Keith Hendricks himself, aka the Outlaw Prince, aka Heartbreak J. How are you doing this afternoon, folks? I don't know if you noticed, but I'm alone here in the studio. My one black friend is not with me. Now, folks, we've got a major problem on our hands. I had this guy that co-hosts this show with me named my one black friend, which should tell you exactly how many black friends I have. And rather than being here with me to co-host this show, folks, I now have no black friends. And why do I have no black friends? Because my one black friend is a traitor. He has betrayed this entire community. Folks, we've got major news in the atheist community. Call all your creeksters. Call all the people over at Myth Vision. Call all the people at the Thinking Atheist. I don't know. You might have to get Matt Dillahunty himself on the phone. Somebody call Aaron Ra. I need some serious help. Where's Nathan from Digital Gnosis? Can I get a little support from the community? Because my one black friend has turned his back on all of us. He has become a born-again Christian. He has enrolled in that Scrooge McDuck Bible University. Folks, he's become a theist. I think he just called me on the phone talking about how he's found my main man, Jesus. And now his heart has been renewed. Folks, I'm kidding. That would be awful. Just would be god awful. My one black friend is taking care of some personal business today. Okay, so just send your thoughts with him. He'll be here with us next week, I'm sure. But yes, today I am holding down the fort solo, folks. So the link is there. It should also be in the description. Want to send a special shout out to anybody that catches the sort of replay after the live broadcast. Appreciate your viewership and your support. Want to thank all the subscribers and all of that. All right, folks, let's get into it. What am I talking about today? Today, I'm going to be talking about, well, I'm going to tell you something honestly. I ain't talking about a goddamn thing until I light up. All right, hang on. Y'all know my one black friend is a very nice, responsible gentleman, very classy. Please don't let your impression of this show be determined by what happens in the studio when I'm here alone. Without my one black friend's guidance, support, and mentorship, I just get kind of ratchet, So don't. This hot program is really not about me. It's really about him and I. And I'm a much more acceptable person when he's around, keeping me in line. Okay, so don't judge the show by what you see today. All right, so what I'm talking about today, I call the hidden cost of faith. Okay, I didn't prepare any high-level graphics. I don't got any animations to drop on you. Okay, so let's just make sure you remember it. The hidden cost with an S on the end. Costs, cost, C-O-S-T-S, the hidden cost, because there are many, of faith. The hidden cost of faith. That's what we're going to be talking about. Now, there's a whole laundry list of these hidden costs, so I'm only going to be able to touch on a few of them. If somebody joins me live and brings their beautiful mug onto this channel or their voice, you'll be able to hear what they have to say about this. Okay? But what do I mean by hidden cost of faith? Let's be very clear. When you sign up for faith, there are certain things you understand as the cost of faith. You understand you're going to be asked to live a very different lifestyle. You understand that you were going to have to be in church pretty much every Sunday, every Saturday, Friday night, whatever the Sabbath day is in your community, whatever your ritual day of observance happens to be, okay? You might recognize that this new faith is chastening you in a way. Certain things you used to could do, you don't really do anymore. Okay. Certain people you might have to the side. Okay. But a lot of these things, although we may touch on them again as hidden cost, but for the most part, some of those things a person is very well aware of, you know. So we want to talk about some of the things that a theist may be signing up for unknowingly, unexplicitly, the sort of baggage that comes along with the package, if you will. So there's going to be a number of these issues. One that comes to mind right away, obviously the changes into the potential changes to Roe v. Wade and the Planned Parenthood case has a lot of people this week thinking about and talking about abortion. Was the sort of topic of late night Counter-Apologetics over on my main channel, if you want to check that out. But I think the abortion issue is one that people may have a different opinion on if they were not religious, especially in the United States. The sort of pro-life community tends to be at least perceived as largely religious. Although Tux, shout out to Tux, made a very good point yesterday, or this morning, I guess I should say. And that's that there is a very strong secular case for that. There's a strong just sort of constitutional argument of when do the constitutional rights extend to you. And, some people would argue that that's at conception. And you can make a very secular argument for that. But I brought up another point kind of related to that because the particular sermon we were listening to talked about the sexual revolution. Pastors just love to go on about them sexual relations. All right, so here was a thing that's I feel like was more of a hidden cost. And you could broadly extend it to lifestyle morality, but I was really thinking of like sexual morality. Like this whole idea that a lot of theists I know, they're very concerned about, and I like to talk about, Christianity on this channel because that's what I'm most familiar with. And I feel like sometimes when I say theist, like at least a lot of the believers I know don't immediately hear themselves because they don't think of themselves as theists. So anyway, a lot of the believers I know, they really do seem concerned with sexual morality. I'll give you an example. Parents shaming their teenagers about masturbation. I don't even think my parents wanted to shame me about masturbation, but I don't think they had like worked out the kinks of the best way to go about these things. And that's parents who care and try. But I know so many situations that were so different than that. And I can't tell you how many sermons I've sat through where like inevitably the sermon turns to porn. And it's just so like, well, it's just fucking creepy. All right. I gotta try to watch the language. I gotta remember my main man, my OneBlack Friend tries to keep this, a more of a family inclusive program language wise. Anyway, but yeah, seriously, like it's so creepy to me that there's this mass organized concern for people touching themselves. And to me, it just to me, I just think of it like, okay, if you weren't getting this constant religious messaging about how bad this is, would you honestly care how much someone touches themselves? Would you honestly care how much people watch pornography that they want to watch, that the pornographers want to make? Like, how I mean, right? So, and this is what I mean about hidden cost. And part of what I'm going to be arguing overall, that I think the reason these hidden costs are important to pay attention to, is something that I've sort of realized with a lot of the things that have been going on in society lately. And that's, I really believe that people only have a certain budget or capacity for like stress and concern. Like, I just think we evolved to just be able to, only do so much based on our cognitive restrictions. And so if you find yourself in a situation where you're just overwhelmed with sort of a baseline of things that you're worried about, as new information or new situations come into the picture, and we kind of, I would say, as a group trying to work cohesively as people, we need you to sometimes get on board with, the problems of today, or the problems of right now, or the problems that we've agreed as a society are really harmful, or things that really need to be addressed. And a lot of these people, I think, find themselves incapable of properly responding to those things because their whole concern budget, if you will, has been blown on nonsense. So that's another one of the hidden costs of faith. You can think of it as the opportunity cost of care, right? Like, when you care really strongly about all these things, it's very hard to care about other things. So the sexual morality is a big one for me. Like, do you really care? Even some of these like trans issues and the sports issues and the who's using what bathroom issues. I mean, I got to just tell you, my friend, as a believer, again, we always come here in the spirit of fellowship, no matter what your belief background is, but we come to be honest with each other. And I got to tell you, you sound real silly to me. That all of that concern for, oh my God, people are going to be exposed. And, if my child has to play on a team with a trans student, they're going to be indoctrinated.
Indoctrinate children.
Y'all just sound retarded to me. Like, just like you never, it almost becomes obvious that you haven't learned to think for yourself, because you're parroting like, talking points from the pulpit, I guess, or somewhere, or right-wing media or something, that most of us just eye roll like, oh, here they go again. So that's one, just this real deep concern for sexual morality. Now, let me flip it to you a couple other ways too, sort of around the same topic. One of the hidden costs that goes along with that is your own sexual and personal expression. This idea that you know, you don't really know yourself, all of the things that you might benefit from experiencing, all the things that may uh, really be necessary as in my opinion, is just a naturally sexual being to yourself. Like I first talked about, well, why are you getting involved in everybody else's business? It makes you look silly and rude, and it's kind of off-putting. Hang on one sec. Business. It makes you look silly and rude and all right, thanks. I just wanted to pull the stream up over there and didn't want to have the volume playing back. All right, so right, but now I'm talking about the cost to yourself. In addition to getting involved in everybody else's business, there's the cost to yourself of feeling shame for these things in yourself, be it shame for masturbating, shame for watching porn, shame for fantasizing about your neighbor's husband, shame for experimenting when you were in college, like that is a real psychiatric burden to place on oneself, especially if you're placing that burden on yourself explicitly tied to a particular religious or political ideation. And then on top of that, it's kind of like, well, there's that, and there's the fact that from our perspective, we don't even know if that thing that you're holding on to is true or even right in and of itself. So from my perspective, it's like you're making that sacrifice, and the thing you're sacrificing it for is not even real or materially manifest. It's just a figment of your imagination. So that makes it extra bad, right? I always say, at least when you paid the penalty cost from master because you were a slave, well, there were real consequences to crossing master, and we didn't have to we didn't have to wonder if he was real. I have a guest. I'm not quite familiar with who this person is, so we'll see what's up. But hey, Andrew, how's it going today?
Cowards, shall we?
Cowards. Who are the cowards?
People that hide behind accounts of dead celebrities writing long, drawn out comments.
So is this your general view of
literally a whole paragraph of something that absolutely means diddly dick?
Right. So, do you have believers in your life?
Person pretending to be Heath Ledger that commented on my last video. Yeah,
wait, hang on,
he's a coward.
What
and
is
90% of cowards like him.
What? Yo, StreamYard is crazy. It really does make it super easy for people to find us and join the stream, which we like. But I don't know. I'm gonna have to start hitting these people up in the private chat and figuring out what they're trying to get on about. I thought he was talking about the scripture. He was like, these cowards writing these paragraphs about these long dead celebrities, and this stuff never happened. I was like, oh, he about to get in some counter-apologetics, some counter biblical exegesis. Here we go. Man, the internet's crazy. All right, so anyway, like I don't, dog. Like I've been streaming. I've been a performer. Like, dog, you ain't gonna throw me. Like I'll just kick you out the stream and keep going. It's really not that big of a deal. All right, so kind of entertaining actually. You never know. You never know what's gonna happen, right? I'm gonna start doing the Vince McMahon. Anything can happen here on Hot Program. All right, so it's a real problem for somebody like me, right? Because it's like, I don't know that the thing that you're bearing all these costs for even exists, right? Now, what's another level to that? Well, another level to that is the fact that in having these particular ideations, in I want to say playing out, because a lot of times I think that's what people are doing. I sort of see religion in some sense as a live action role play, if you will. It's like the cosplay that won't quit, so to speak. And so what I think a lot of these people are doing is they're actually going a bit further than that, and they're actually harming those other people, right? So for instance, I know some people that are very active with trying to say minister or pray for or help deliver people from their homosexuality, right? So not only are you all up in this person's business, where you probably wouldn't be if you didn't have these ideas, not only are you potentially repressing your own thing, but now on top of that, it's like you could actually be doing harm to this person, right? Like, they feel, I don't know if sometimes Christians try to put things in a Christianese. They try to say things like hate the sin and not the sinner. Okay, but that's stupid. How stupid is it? It's like war on drugs stupid, or war on terror stupid. What do I mean by that? You can't fight a war on terror because terror isn't a person. You can't fight a war on drugs because drugs aren't people. When you fight a thing on, insert some inanimate word here, what you really do is you declare war against the person. So the war on drugs was a war on drug users, drug distributors, and that whole thing. The war on terror is supposed to be a war on terrorists, right? So when you hate the sin but not the sinner, you're just pulling that same rhetorical trick, but the person who has the sin that you're trying to work with or combat, they feel that as you not feeling like they're equal, not feeling like they're really wholly adequate, right? So I think it's an understatement to say that these type of religious ideations hurt the people who are what I would say are the victims of this sort of culture of indoctrination.
Indoctrinate children
Based on how people interpret the Bible. So, like that's that. Now let's go into another hidden cost. Here I'm thinking about what I'm gonna summarize as let me show you. Let me show you. I get it. Make sure y'all get a good visual. This one we call Jesus Take the Wheel. Okay, we call this Jesus Take the Wheel. All right. So now the key to driving, right? Like when you go to driving school, right? When you learn how to drive, right? They tell you like this. Ten and two is what they tell you. 10 and 2. So you got to do your 10 and 2, right? But people of faith, when times get hard and life throws the obstacles, instead of going into GI mode and shifting and turning and maneuvering, you know what I'm saying? Doing what you got to do to demonstrate you can handle, to demonstrate your whip game, y'all be like, oh my God, I don't know what's gonna happen. Jesus, take the wheel. Jesus, take. Boom. Right. Okay. So I hope y'all got the visual reinforcement. I hope you now can visually understand the problem. The problem is you can't get a handle on things when you let go of the controls. Okay. So So this Jesus take the wheel mentality, or Allah take the wheel, or Muhammad take the wheel, you know, whatever it is. Okay. The problem there is that by having that mentality, you surrender your agency. You 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 know, you don't need, this isn't a Jesus take the wheel moment. This is a grab and dodge and handle, show your whip game moment, get out of a sticky situation moment. And obviously it's not something that literally manifests itself in car accidents, although I'm sure in America it'd be probably surprising. We could probably get a crazy statistic on Jesus take the wheel accidents. Sam, are you trying to go on your chair? I don't know what this dog's trying to do. All right, so I think I spun the wrong way. So, you know, like that's kind of one way of thinking about it. Another, the particular context I'm thinking of is like medical situations, right? When someone gets sick, and you know, there's sort of, you know, sometimes it's not even a complete dismissal of care. Sometimes it's not even like, oh, I'm sick, whatever, I'm not going to get this treated because of faith. But sometimes even the delay can be crucial. Even the delay can make a situation much more worse, or, you know, beyond what can be, you know, healed or helped or treated. And in some of these cases of, say, like child abuse based on faith healing, you often find that that is sort of in the reasoning of the court, was that the aspect of abuse was that there was sort of an unreasonable delay in getting the child treatment for the condition, right? But a lot of times, if you want to listen to these people seriously, and this is sometimes what, like, we have to remember as non-believers when we're in conversations, when we're in that spirit of fellowship, and we have the ear of a believer, take their faith sincerely. Like, I can't stand when people just like laugh this off, or go, well, I'm not that crazy, I wouldn't do that. Okay, but if there's people that are that serious about it in your church, then like, shouldn't it be something you address with them? Because you got to believe that a parent who does that, especially these parents that are like repeat offenders. I don't know if you've ever heard these stories of like a parent who like gets in trouble because their child has a chronic, you know, debilitating condition, and you know, they held off on treatment because of a faith healer and didn't get care, and eventually got brought to the courts and they got in trouble, and then they more or less do it again, knowing full well this time that they're, you know, risking their freedom and all of the legal consequences, all of the sort of reputational effects and all of that goes along with all of this. Well, why are they doing that? I mean, at this point, I have no choice but to understand them as sincere believers, that they're doing this because they really believe it's what needs to be done, that they're doing it because their belief that that their God is going to come through for them and truly make that difference, such that their child is healed and they don't need to rely on medical care. And matter of fact, they're doing what's in the child's best interest. Yo, we got to take them very seriously, that that's exactly what they believe. At that point, right, that's exactly what they believe. I don't think they're just putting on a show. I mean, I think the whole thing is, like I said, I think the whole thing's a LARP, but they buy into it. You know what I'm saying? They're not, as Roman Reigns would say, they're not playing a character, they are the character. Okay. All right. So that's kind of where I think that's at. And again, totally unfortunate, because I just don't think that they would do that. I think if it wasn't for, you know, their particular beliefs, they would just seek help for their child. So, but there's a lot of that. There's a lot of, even just the whole endeavor of faith healing, I feel is like a hidden cost, because it's like there's so many people who even like they will go get the medical treatment, but then they'll try to get the faith stuff too, like, oh, it can't hurt, or sort of in desperation wanting to take like a let's throw everything at it, physical restoration from the medical doctors, and spiritual means of restoration from the faith healer. But again, like the cost that people pay in traveling to visit the faith healer, or sending extra money to the faith healer, that stuff is just awful. Then on top of that, being taken advantage of, right? Then enabling other people to be taken advantage of because they get suckered into it. Them being there, them rejoicing in these things, them buying into these things just makes it that much more likely for other people to do it, right? And so these are just so many of the things that come along with it. Like I could tell you about friends and loved ones that talk about how somebody's near death, or going through those very difficult final stages of life, and the family's all on the email and the text exchange, praying for God to come through and stuff like that. Some of other people in our YouTube community have talked about that. So you can hear them, just talking about how gut-wrenching it is, and really honestly feeling like there's nothing you could do or really say in situations like that. But to me, it's definitely a tragedy. And honestly, like, again, taking people of faith seriously, I don't really see how they could not do that, which is why I think it's so important to have these conversations with the believers in your life, in a sense, when they are in good health and sound mind. Because I think when tragedy strikes, it often is too late. And a sincere believer, to me, it's almost like you really have to turn to God in those situations. Like, if you ain't gonna pray the walls down when you get sick, then I think in your own mind you'd be questioning whether or not you're a true believer. So I really am sympathetic to people who feel they can't really get into it with family members and friends, especially not when that type of critical situation is happening. But by the same token, I think it's important to acknowledge it as a serious cost. And maybe part of what a goal or call to action for this particular broadcast could be is saying, like, hey, if you need some extra motivation to have these conversations with people in your life, maybe thinking about these hidden costs and presenting them with some of these hidden costs will, one, be a different way to come at it, maybe a less aggressive way to come at it, but two, also a loving way. I think when we have these conversations with friends and family, it's very easy to get caught up in the headline of us not agreeing about things. So I'm an atheist and you're a Christian, and I'm a agnostic and you're a Muslim, or I'm a skeptic and you're committed to presuppositional whatever, right? But you really got to remind a person, I wouldn't be talking to you at all if I didn't care. I wouldn't be talking to you in the slightest if I didn't think it mattered. And some of these hidden costs of faith conversations can be a way to very clearly articulate that support and love for that person. it also, I think, has the advantage of something you're going to hear me probably talking about quite a bit on this particular channel, which is I think there's a whole different approach to counter apologetics that we might summarize as the argument from "you're a sucker," or the argument from "they're making a fool of you." Not even vicarious embarrassment in this case, but direct embarrassment. Vicarious embarrassment is sort of the idea, well, you know, if I have a debate with somebody who has a particular worldview or a particular stance, and, you know, I'm able to engage that person in a way that makes that stance, you know, not look good or seem foolish, then another person who might be watching, who has the same perspective or would have to defend that same idea, feels like, oh man, that person who had my idea looked really bad. Maybe I ought to re-examine that idea because I would have looked really silly in that situation. But this, I'm talking about a little bit more direct, because to be honest with you, I think those conversations about evidence, arguments, debates, they're a bit tough to have a lot of times, especially because a lot of believers, that type of thinking is not very important to their faith to begin with. So whatever aspect you tear down, they're just willing to shift over to, well, you know, it isn't really about that anyway, or whatever, and they'll play that tap dance forever. So a whole different angle on it, a whole different way to come at it, is to position it to be something like, well, I think these people are taking advantage of you and making a fool out of you. We don't like that on a whole different level than somebody telling us they don't agree with a particular idea, or you know, they think we're wrong or what have you. Hang on a second. This guy is like still here. All right, I'm just gonna kick this guy from the studio. All right. So yeah, so sorry, I had somebody in the backstage area. It was the same guy as before, so I just kicked them. I think if you've been trying to have these conversations with people and found yourself frustrated that they don't seem to be getting anywhere, maybe try, I'm not saying try to like bring it up like, oh hey, I think you're dumb for doing church things or whatever, but the next time you maybe find yourself in a conversation, maybe see if you can throw some of this in there. All right, so let's get to some of these other hidden costs of faith. We've touched on a few important ones, such as, you know, Jesus take the wheel mentality, you know, weird ideas about other people's sex lives, and one, you know, you kind of feeling like motivated or concerned about those things, or trying to make policies on those things, but also suppressing your own expression, but then also maybe harming the people who you think are engaged in sinful behavior. Another one, we talked about the medical stuff. Another one we should be explicit about, I think, is financial exploitation. You know, I joke with some of my, I guess I call them my YouTube friends now, about the amount of money we spend on super chats and Patreons and supporting the content creators that we really like. You know, by the way, if you want to support this channel, we appreciate that. We'll try to have some links in the next week or so people can donate if that's something they want to do. But you know, it's fun to have those conversations because we support those content creators freely, out of just you know, really think what they're doing is valuable and want to help them do more of it. Want to show our support in that way. But I think the compulsory giving of religions is quite immoral, especially for people who just, in some sense, don't have it. Like, I think the whole notion of like that 10%, you know, wherever that comes from, is like some crude estimation of what should be like reasonable. Like, oh, you should be able to live off 90%. But for a lot of people, that's not true. It's not true for me. Like, I don't think I could really get by or do the things I need to do or invest in the things I feel the need to invest in. With 10% less than my income. It just sounds crazy to me. But even more so than the number, whatever the number would be, it's the fact that you're forced to do it. It's the fact that you are, you know, not fully participating or not fully in membership of the church or not fully right with God unless you give. And truly, some of the churches really almost want you to give until it hurts. I've even heard a lot of the story, I think of it was Isaac and Jacob or whatever, the father, right, that's gonna sacrifice his son, you know, for God until the angel shows up and stops him, and it was all just the test of his faith, which, by the way, makes your God the most disgusting, cruel, and awful fictional character I could even possibly imagine. Right? Think about it. Think about how, setting religion aside, I don't even think the most cruel, imaginative Hollywood folks, maybe set aside Star Wars in some sense, right? Like sacrificing or killing your own son just for narrative device, it's got to be considered just the lowliest of lows. But anyway, I've heard a lot of pastors basically use that to say, well, look how much he was willing to give, right? And are you willing to give to the Lord such that it would be a sacrifice? So what I'm getting at with people is, in some of these churches that really, really push that type of thing hard, it isn't just giving the 10% or even just giving the 10% in an offering. It's like, if you're giving 10% in an offering and that isn't really a burden to you financially, such that God may not really, really see it as a sacrifice, then you should give more up until, you know, it crosses well over that threshold of where it really is a problem, where it really is a sacrifice. That way God can evaluate your sacrifice amongst the greats, so to speak. And so again, it almost becomes like I used to say about children. Children are not just expensive in some sense. In some cultures, they're as expensive as possible because of the social pressure to do as much for them as you know, as much for them as you can, and giving them the best you can and the most you can. And so they become not just expensive, but almost literally as expensive as you can afford for them to be. And some churches have the same mentality towards giving to the church, right? Like, you need to give as much to the church as you can, because the more and more and more you give to them, the more pleasing it is to God, because of God's, you know, crazy and incessant need for human sacrifice, right? Which is really what that is. Okay. Let's be clear on that. It's a sacrifice. Anytime somebody places a restriction on you in order to appease their demands, they're requiring a sacrifice of you. Maybe it isn't lay down at the altar and be burned at the stake, or give up your whole life, or become celibate, or whatever. And again, we've touched on some of those other ones, because we could have thrown purity culture right in there with our talk on, sex. So that's why this compulsory giving is a real big problem for me. It's a topic we could do a whole multi-hour stream on. But this one is to touch on a lot of these different hidden costs of faith. So the compulsory giving is definitely one for me. Another one that, and I'm just kind of going off the cuff as they come to me. I just have had enough conversations about this to know that I've got a ton of them sort of in the can. Another one that just came to me is, and it's something I'm still trying to work my way through coming out of faith. So even as a non-believer, it's something we all struggle with, actually. It's not unique to religion. I just think religion makes it a whole hell of a lot worse. So this one is just the deep feelings of inadequacy and insecurity. This idea that you are fundamentally broken. You are fundamentally sinful, dirty, gross, shameful, unpleasing to God, unworthy of his sight, that you need to be purified by the refiner's fire before you are even deserving of love. Matter of fact, can we keep it a buck? Can we keep it 100? Can we keep it real and just say, can we just say what they say all the time? You were born sinful. The wages of sin is what? Y'all with it? The wages of sin is that. Y'all with it? The wages of sin is death. Okay. So you are deserving of death, right? Let's just call it what it is. Sin, I was putting it mildly before. Inadequate, dirty, shameful, unworthy. No. You're deserving of death, quite frankly. Okay. And only through, the blood sacrifice of God to himself, for himself, to appease himself, are you even worthy of consideration of life? If and only if, you believe in the whole, song, dance, and script. So to me, again, that is just, and again, like, it's something we need to use as a counter to Christians coming at us with the BS about, oh, well, my faith makes me so much happier and I have so much more purpose. And I just feel I just wake up in the morning feeling embraced by his love. And when I see the sun that he's allowed to shine on me, I just feel the warmth and beauty of his care for me. And I know that he is with me. And we should be like, really? And just ask him, are you a sinner? Because most of them will say, yeah. And be like, the wages of sin is, oh, death. Yeah. That guy thinks you're deserving of death. Okay. Cut the BS, cut the nonsense. We got to stop. If people want to be childish in their ideation, don't let them talk to you like you're a child. Make it very clear that you understand what's up and that you're going to have an adult conversation if they're willing to engage in said. But I could tell you right now, and most of y'all, I think, will probably agree with me if you think about it, because it's quite obvious that this sort of you were born in filth and muck and shame is unhealthy, especially for people's mental health. So that is one of the hidden costs of faith that I don't think people are very conscious. Like, I don't think anybody gets up in the morning and all right. So yeah. So that's something to me that like is like a serious issue. A serious issue. Um because to be honest, being in relationship with believers, this is really hard for them. And it's something that I know I struggled with a lot. And it's almost like having a form of chronic depression that there's almost no cure for, because the person feels really sort of dependent on sort of the esteem that they get from their religious experience, from the psychiatric or psychological benefits of belief, which I think there are. But at the same time, part and parcel with it is the depression. Part and parcel with it is the weight of sin, and um, it's a real tough one for me, because I struggle with my own mental health issues. And so I really think that in a world that is trying to make progress and take mental health seriously, and try to raise awareness and resources and a different level of societal commitment to addressing mental health issues, thinking about the large proportion of our society and our communities and our world that is subject to these particular type of religious ideas, and understanding that I just think that that is a hidden cost that is totally unacceptable. Um, and I hate to say it, but they just need to switch up what they're preaching, right? Like, and honestly, like, I think it's a bit overrated from the ministry perspective. Like, I'm gonna be giving y'all a lot of different perspectives on this show, right? Because I'm an atheist, I'm an evolutionary biologist. At the same time, I was Christian my whole life, and I still, even as an atheist, participate in worship teams. And I'm sitting on a platform, behind the pastor a lot of times as he's giving his sermon, or I'm out in the audience, picking it up, or I'm behind the soundboard. And so I'm always thinking about things kind of differently because I'm engaged in it from a bit of a different angle. But I think even in ministry, preachers and worship leaders and ministries, they overrate the um they overrate the uh basically they overrate the sales appeal of guilt. Like, I just think that most believers come to church to be encouraged. Most of the worship music, they want to be uplifting, or if it's a different mood or a different vibe, like a ballad or passionate or something, but they still want that to have sort of a heart message. I think a lot of times churches get the idea of like, if I don't really lay into my congregation with uh the whole fire and brimstone weight of sin, or telling them just how ugly and dirty, I always hear your sin is like filthy rags or whatever. I think they really feel like if they don't do that, part of the visceral experience will be missing and people won't come back as much. And I tend to think that it's just a miscalculation. Like they just got that idea from church tradition and they've never really just moved away from it. I think large part because they feel like moving away from it is moving too much towards like a cult of personality or too much like a charismatic ministry or whatever. But my point is really that like I don't think people really go to church for that. And so I don't think you really need to like include it like, oh, we got to make sure we have a really sad song or else, people won't be reminded of just how much they deserve death. Or I got to make sure I really emphasize all the pain Jesus went through just for you. It's like you could skip that part probably. But there is wholeheartedly a very serious cost of personal inadequacy that comes oftentimes with faith. All right, moving on. The list just keeps on going, folks. Let me think. What do I want to talk about next? All right, another hidden cost of faith. One that I think encompasses a lot of different things. But I'm basically going to call it magical thinking. It's the sort of the idea that you lend a lot of credulity and take seriously so all right, people asking about the StreamYard link. This is a call-in show, but it's also just a show for a community. So it's a video. People will watch it later. The show is called Hot Program. It's a counter-apologetics show. If you want to come on this show, you need to watch the show long enough to understand what the show's about so that when you come on the show, you can talk about what the show's about. The show is not a random show. It isn't an open hangout. It isn't a come on and talk about what's on your stream and what's on your YouTube. This particular show is about the hidden cost of faith. So if you have something to say about the hidden cost of faith, I'd love to have you on. But you can't come on here and just talk about anything you want. So if you'd like to put something in the chat that tells me what you want to come on and talk about, that's fine. But I'm not going to let people just come on and talk about whatever they want. So yes, the StreamYard link is there. This is a call-in show. But like many call-in shows, we expect people to call in to have something to say about the topic of that day's show. All right. Thank you. Now, the next hidden cost of faith thing that I want to touch on, like I said, is magical thinking. And so it's basically the idea that because a person sort of buys into what I'm going to call, for lack of better expression, a supernatural epistemology, because their worldview already accepts things like miracles, faith healing, hidden knowledge, secret rites and sort of mysterious thinking, if you will, a lot of the superstition, right? I believe that these people are much more likely to fall into other forms of deception, being taken advantage of, because that stuff's already in their worldview. So I'll give you a couple examples. I have believers who, sure, they're believers, and yeah, that really expresses their commitments in terms of God or their religion or whatever. But they're also seen to be way more likely to buy into things like essential oils, right? I've heard people say, oh, well, my friend got COVID, and then she treated with all this stuff. And, I don't know, she swears by the zinc and the peppermint oil and and all of this stuff. And, in that laundry list of things will, of course, be some medicine. that we believe with good reason actually likely is an efficient treatment for the thing. But to just have all of that in there, shows you that they're willing to just believe, stuff more easily than others are, in a general way that's less critical. In some way, I think it's because they recognize that if they started to apply that type of critical thinking to everything, they'd have to do it to their faith to be consistent. And since they're willing to believe that, prayer works and all this other stuff, or the sacred oil of a minister can anoint some oil and, put a cross on your head with olive oil, and that can have some sort of healing properties. Why can't essential oils? And so this bleeds over into other like multi-level marketing type stuff. So I don't know what's going on outside. It feels like my neighbor's beating a drum or something. I'm normally the only one beating drums in this neighborhood. It sounds like a marching band. It's like, it's awful. All right. So these people are more subject to multi-level marketing, to conspiracy theories, to other forms of spiritual woo-woo, right? A lot of times people that were raised religious and decide that the claims of that particular religion are no longer true. They don't go full-born skepticism and atheism. They often become spiritual but not religious, right? And so they get into other types of, astrology and, soothsayers and the pointing people. I forget what that's called, with the metal hanger looking thing that points to stuff. I don't know. Tarot card readers, palm readers. Especially interesting that females, like I used to study the pickup artist type stuff, right? And I learned how to read a woman's palm and do handwriting analysis and a lot of those cold call techniques. And a lot of those things appeal to people. And I just think that part of it's people. Like, I don't want to make it sound like it's just religion that does this, because this is just human nature, right? But in religion, we find ourselves these institutions of mass scale, just almost incomprehensible scale, that are sort of ingratiated into the fiber of our society in a way that they're able to push that type of thinking in a way that it's not institutionally reinforced at the same scale otherwise, right? So I'm not saying people wouldn't believe silly things without religion. I'm just saying religion happens to be a method of programming people at such a mass level that it's just totally different. And again, it reminds me of Christopher Hitchens, right?
A good argument is that it is falsifiable, not that it's unfalsifiable.
Right. And so when you sort of are susceptible to one form of unfalsifiable thinking, uncritical methodology in your religion, you may be more likely for that to creep in other areas of your life. And I call that hidden cost of faith, magical thinking. All right. Let's see what else we got. Okay, I got one. I call this one a lack of, I want to call it like intellectual motivation. I want to call it like a subverted education drive. Something that I think that's counterintuitive to probably a lot of theists is that, from my perspective, in some sense, they lack curiosity. A lot of them don't understand that. They have this sort of view of, I'm constantly in awe of the wonders of God, how he could, this is where your look at the trees comes in, or look at the stars, or look at all the wonderful order in the universe. You get a lot of those arguments, and fine, like whatever. But to me, it comes off and normally I think manifests itself in a way to where it's like you're not really curious about those things in the same way that somebody who, my bias is like particular scientist or a scholar might be, because they're motivated to go out and learn about the thing and really study the thing and figure out where it came from or why it's the way it is or what it might be like in the future or what they were like in the past and what's their history, and learn all about their behavior and learn all about the intricacies. A lot of times believers just don't do that because they're happy to just be satisfied with like, oh, God did it and wow, look at the grandeur of God, and then that's like it. And I'm not saying this is the case always. There are many scientists, scholars, and people like that. I say myself, I wouldn't be a scientist if I wasn't a believer first, because being a believer is what made me curious and passionate about the bigger questions. Where do we come from? Who are we? What's our purpose? And then I found science as a way to get meaningful answers to those questions that didn't rely on faith, that were just straight up facts, like just, oh, that's what it is. So I don't want to make it sound, again, like you guys got to listen to me a bit charitably too. When I talk about problems within a faith, I'm not saying everybody in the faith has this problem, but I think it would be oversight and to not notice the systematic sort of relationship there. And so, yeah, obviously there are exceptions to this. But generally, this is a lot of times how I feel about people of faith. So the example I would give is, somebody who just thinks, like my mom. My mom loves butterflies and bunnies, and so she has a lot of bunny and butterfly art and decorations and stuff. But I know people who study butterflies and bunnies for a living, and they have a total different level of curiosity. And I'm not saying that to be curious about something or passionate about something, you have to study it or want to read about it or want to learn about it for a living or something like that, or want to teach it or whatever. But there is a huge difference in the motivation. And I think it's important to notice that and say, like, if you really didn't have this idea of how it was all worked out according to your God, might you have a little bit more motivation to actually understand it? To actually read books about, if you're a look at the trees person, my first question would be like, okay, so you've looked at the trees, but how many books have you read about trees? How many excursions have you even gone on just to look at the trees? Have you traveled to different parts of your state, different national parks to see the different species of tree? Do you know how many kinds of trees are in your state? How many kinds of trees are in your neighborhood? How many kinds of trees are in your yard? Do you know why some trees are green all year round and others aren't? Like, can you explain how it works? Can you explain photosynthesis? How old can trees be? How fast can trees grow? Do y'all see what I'm getting at? When you just look at the trees, you don't have answers to any of these questions. How many books do you have in your home on your bookshelf about trees? Answer for a lot of people is 0. So forgive me if I don't take your curiosity and your amazement and your passion and your wonder at these things that seriously. Right? I used another example on a call with my friend, and I say everybody wants to be a drummer, but nobody wants to play drums. What I mean by that is when I perform, when I play, I often have people come up to me, and I love it. I would never criticize it, but just think about it from the perspective of the musician you're talking to, right? And they say things like, "Oh, dude, that was so great. Like, I really loved your playing. Love that. Keep it coming. Appreciate it. Work very hard at it." But then they'll say things like, "I always wanted to be a drummer." And I always say, "Man, that's super cool. Like, I hope you." I always try to encourage somebody. So if somebody ever says they want to be a drummer or they always did or whatever, I encourage them. let me know. Like, I'll give you some books. I got some books for you. I got some sticks for you. I know people you should look into. I got great YouTube video. I got an entire playlist for people who want to learn how to play drums. I got all the books. I got everything you want to learn. And I'm happy to help you. Happy to give you lessons. Happy to help you find lessons, right? But my point is, when people normally say that, what they mean is, I always thought it'd be really cool to be up on stage playing drums in a performance. They always had the look at the trees approach to, wouldn't it be cool to play drums? Or wouldn't it be great to be a guitarist? Wouldn't it be great to paint? Right? And so when I say everybody wants to be a drummer, but nobody wants to play drums, what I mean is, all you have to do to actually become a drummer is be motivated enough to pair that curiosity with the actual motivation to learn, understand, and do the thing. And then there's nothing stopping you. There's nothing stopping you from buying a practice pad drum set. There's nothing stopping you from buying drumsticks. There's nothing stopping you from paying for lessons. There's nothing stopping you from even just taking the free route, buying yourself some sticks, building a drum kit out of pots and pans, and getting busy. I mean, I'm gonna just show y'all some real, like, I can show y'all some real stuff of just some people like out in Africa just getting busy on pots and pans or like paint buckets and stuff. They go at that, right? And what I would say to people in my church is, people would love the idea of being the drummer for this church on Sunday morning or Thursday night when we do our college ministry. But I'm the drummer for this church 7 days a week, because I have to. That's what it takes to be prepared for that moment. All right. So how does that tie back to our point? That's how I feel with the look at the trees, folks. They want to be drummers, but they don't want to play drums. They want to be fascinated by everything, but they're not motivated to learn about things, to study them. And to me, that's a cost. I feel like a fundamentalist religious background in many cultures is a barrier to a career in science. That bothers me as a scientist, especially as an evolutionary biologist. Evolution is like, to us, Theodosius Dobzhansky said, nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution. I hope I'm getting that right. So evolution is like the core theory for all of biology. And how many people just don't even believe it because they'd rather just say, look at the trees. So are they really going to be motivated to make the next contribution? Are they really going to be motivated to be the people to study how viruses evolve so that we can tackle the grand moonshoot scientific challenge of achieving pandemic preparedness, which I don't know if y'all can notice, but we were not prepared for this pandemic. So we need people to wrap their minds around evolution, understand how viruses work, so we can be prepared for the next one. Do you think creationists who don't accept evolution are going to be amongst the leaders in that effort? Everybody wants to be a drummer. Nobody wants to play drums. All right. So let's touch on a couple more, and then I'm get on out of here. Let y'all go on about y'all days. Whew. I want to touch on something really personal, because I feel like some of the stuff I've touched on is not really that personal. I hope it is for people. But man, I just want to talk about like family for a second, right? Because I think that's what a lot of this boils down to for a lot of us. It really boils down to, we believe something different than the people in our family. And it puts up a wall in some sense. I'll talk about my family just to keep it personal. I don't think they'll watch this type of stuff, but if they do, my family knows we're all pretty open people, so we can take it. I love my family and they love me, but not believing the same faith that they believe really does put a wall between us. And it hurts too, right? Because I was raised by that family to be religious, to love Jesus, to love God, to make the religion the center of my life. For most of them, it's the center of their identity. But now I've transitioned out of that, and it's like there isn't the same space for them to understand how important not being a believer is to me now. Like, and so my atheism is just as important to me as their Christianity is to them. And yet it's like hard, right? Like I go home for holidays and like the Christmas thing, it's always like the Christmas program. And I love it. It's beautiful. I actually, I really love like for what my mom's church does around the holidays. I wouldn't put them on blast. I would never do them on like late night Counter-Apologetics. I actually really like that church. I like her pastor. They're all great people. But they put on this whole elaborate thing with a beautiful orchestra and stuff. And to me, it's just to push lies, just to tell a story that isn't true. And I can't even have that conversation, but it's so tough to just have to sit there and like feel like you're watching your family being brainwashed, but they're so happy about it you can't say anything. Or you're excited about something, or you're having a real strong thought about this whole thing, and you've just had a really exciting conversation about religion or something, and you want to go share that with your family, but you can't, because they're believers or whatever. So I do think that, and again, you got to understand my perspective on this, y'all. We're all here together, atheists, believers, agnostic, indifferent, apathetic. We don't care. Spirit of fellowship. Everyone's welcome, as long as you're talking about the topic. All right. But everybody's welcome, right? And so understand that for me, my perspective is that stuff isn't true. It just isn't true. God isn't real. Jesus isn't God. None of them other gods are gods either. So none of it's true. And so from my perspective, it's like, well, every family has divisions in it. Families who, disagree on politics have divisions. Yeah, but their disagreements in politics are real. They're very real, differing opinions on that. I don't see a lot of families divided because one side of the family believes in leprechauns and the other doesn't, right? See the difference? Now, I know if you're a theist, that probably was an insult. And I didn't mean it to be insulting. I just want you to understand that from my perspective, the difference is, are we fighting over something where, yes, there's good reason that reasonable people have very strong disagreements about that? Or are we having the same sort of disagreement and division? And according to some of us, what we're arguing about is whether or not, there's unicorns that have toads on them, right? It's just some other fantastic manifestation of the human imagination. So that's why these particular costs are so unacceptable to me. Now again, if you're coming from the other side of this and God is real and the scripture is the word and all of this, then I grant you that a lot of what I'm saying, just comes with it. And even if you don't, because honestly, if I was a theist, I wouldn't even feel the need to have answers to these things, because I would just say, whatever, if that's how God works, how God's work, and it's beyond me. I get that people feel that way. But for me, it's like, I don't believe any of this stuff. So to be paying all these costs, and the reward is simply just loyalty to a God who will not reward you for that loyalty because he doesn't exist, then I think these costs are not worth it. Another one that I think sort of goes hand in hand about not caring about what other people do in the privacy of their bedroom and the privacy of their home is just sort of the weird superstitiousness that goes along with a lot of religion. Like just a weird, like a really, like I'm gonna give you one that might be weird. It might feel weird, but I think some of y'all will see where I'm going with this. Some of y'all won't, but then you just don't know the type of faith I do. Did it just get a little sinful in here to some of y'all? Did some of y'all just get, does mood lighting kind of trigger you? Right? If you see a nigga chilling with a lava lamp in the background, do you start to get certain ideas in your head about that person's lifestyle? Right? Like just certain weird associations, right? Like I don't know. A lot of my Christian friends probably don't have no mood lighting in their house. I can tell you that right now. Because it's just like something they just stay away from. You got to go to like Spencer's Gifts to get that kind of thing. You know, they stay out of that store. And obviously the lighting thing might be a bit of an exaggeration, but there are a lot of things that people have weird superstitions about. We touched on some of them: pornography, masturbation, whatever. But there's some stuff that's just weird and it's kind of silly. I'll give you one. Like when I was growing up, my grandmother really didn't want to want us watching stuff with like guns in it. So part of the reason I can't shoot a gun is because, you know, my grandmother thinks it's like a sin to like watch TV with gun violence in it. You know, my grandfather has been able to lay down some sort of agreement where he could watch his Westerns when he needs to, and she'll go upstairs and like away from that, but she doesn't even want to. No. Right. I can't tell you how many Christian friends talk about all the music they burned, all the CDs that they destroyed, you know, when they were religious, because, you know, listening to Slipknot was just going to take you down a life of untold sin. And you were definitely gonna let that music be the reason you end up in hell, you know. Right? We're not even touching on like serious hardcore sin stuff. We're just talking about the fact that it makes you just have silly ideas about stuff that like you would not care about otherwise, and it just doesn't matter. Just plain silliness, like cross-dressing, like a man wearing woman's clothing. Me personally, I say, like, if y'all want to know what type of girls I like, I always say excuse my language, but I want to say how I really say it. I say I want a straight bitch that beats her face like a drag queen. Why? Because drag queens, not all of them, but a lot of drag queens, when you see the makeup videos, the makeup tutorials, the makeup games on their reality show, their makeup game is on smash. I'm sorry, straight girls. I know you think you're pretty and you got the whole cis woman thing happening for you, and you do. I like me. I only like cis women. Matter of fact, it's just my preference. Okay, but when it comes to the makeup thing, the drag queens be killing it. The drag queens, because like I say, there's levels to the game, right? And I think of like a straight cis woman as like a you know, she's like street beefs, like backyard brawls. You know, she just started training in the gym. You know, she's been doing real good, you know, because a lot of them been doing their makeup their whole life. So their makeup is really good. Okay. They're really good. They've been training in the gym. Okay. Then they decide they wanted to get some real fights. Okay. So they're in a little backyard street beefs. You know what I'm talking about? A little bit of underground cage fighting. Okay. But the really good drag queens are like UFC pay-per-view level cage fighting artists who will put you in a hurricane rana and like choke you out with their big toe. Okay, that's how on point their makeup game is. And if I could just combine the two, if I could just combine with just the artwork, just when I look at the eyes, they'll be sparkling and like fades and like a little peacock patterns and stuff. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Girl, woman, I will stare into your eyes all night long. So that's what it is. All right. But the point is, for the religious people, why do you care? Who cares if a man wants to put makeup all over his face? Who cares? What? It's good for the makeup industry. Matter of fact, think about it this way. I got a whole new women out there, Christian women. I got the solution for you. From now on, you don't have to be mad when you see people in drag. What you say is, I believe that the drag community is an incredibly important sector of the makeup market. Now, imagine how expensive MAC makeup would be. Imagine how expensive, what's the one with the car, Mary Kay or whatever, with the pink Cadillacs. Imagine how much more expensive makeup would be if the drag market wasn't helping to support it. So from now on, you have to be pro-drag to keep the cost of makeup reasonable. Okay, that's your new argument. Okay, all right, but yeah, why do people care about stuff like that? Why do you care about people who smoke weed? Why do you care? Why should you care? Why do you care if people drink alcohol? Why do you care? Why do you not care? Why do you get mad if adults watch rated R movies? Do you see all of this? It's like superstitious to us to think that these CDs, these movies, this you seeing a man in makeup has some sort of like I'm gonna be gay all of a sudden because I see a man in drag. I'm not. I might be tricked every once in a while. That just means they're good at what they do. That just mean they on point. If they do it so much that they pass, and I'm like, yo, let me holler at Shorty, and you're like, yo, Jay, that's a dude. I'm a holler like, yo, respect. We ain't gonna go out like that, but respect, yo. You doing your thing, bro. You got it together. Matter of fact, let me get your number because if I do have a girlfriend and her makeup game is not right, I'm calling you, bro. I'm calling you. You on point, bro. Pound. All right. Okay. Then when I see him on RuPaul's Drag Race, I'm gonna be like, I seen him in the streets. I knew we had talent. I told y'all I seen him, and I told you we had talent. Okay. So I don't know why they care. All right, folks. Look, I'm sure there's a lot of other hidden costs of faith. I'm sure I skipped some. Let me know in the comments either how you feel about some of the ones I've mentioned, some of the ones I may have forgotten. Listen, folks, if this show sucked, if this was just the worst show ever, if you were just like, I cannot stand this Jay Bundy character, please understand, folks. It's just because my one black friend ain't here. Okay, the whole show would have been better if it's like a 5 out of 10. It would have been a 12 out of 10. You would have had all the best takes. If I forgot all the real hidden costs of faith are the most important, it's because my one black friend's not here. That's why. I can't be. There's only so much I can do about it. I'm only human. Okay, I'm not a theist. I'm only human. Okay, I don't have any supernatural intervention to help me out, folks. All right. This was super fun, though. This is something I've wanted to talk about for a while. With my one black friend not being here, I figured let's go ahead and chat about this. I want to thank all the viewers, all the subscribers. Like I always say, if you watch now, later, or never, whenever works for you, works for me. Please check out my other channel. You can like and subscribe over there. You'll see my late night Counter-Apologetics that I do at 1 o'clock in the morning on Sunday morning or late Saturday night if you stay up. I had my first guest and stuff on last night. That was super fun. We talked about, like I said, abortion. So if you want to go over my other channel, you can see the videos over there. I'm going to be doing another podcast here coming up with the main man Tux called No Good and Evil. So I'll be giving you guys more information about that coming up. Please join my Discord. That is the way to stay in touch with me and know everything I have going on and get announcements. Please join the Discord. Visit jbundy.com. I'm going to be updating the website. And then from now on, you guys will be able to just go to jbundy.com and keep track of all the different channels and all the things I'm doing. Of course, if you're in the Twitch thing, I do stream a lot, but I do most of my streams on Twitch. These streams are very like they're podcasts to me, right? But when I'm just working or gaming or working on some production stuff in the studio, if I'm going to stream that, I do that over on Twitch. All right, so love doing this. Shout out to my one black friend. We missed you today. We missed you today. But we're in your corner, and we are excited to have you back with us next week. Hey, folks, this was our first time on StreamYard. We had a couple people try to bomb it. It's all good. I made it so you got to like log in or whatever, so that should help clean that up a little bit. We'll get some of that tweaked as we get used to this here. But I actually think it made it easier. Same thing kind of happened over on my stream earlier on the other channel. But I had guests come on and people, and it was a great time. So we had to kick 1 or 2 people out, but hey, no big deal. I'm the producer and the host of this show. I have no problem doing that. So thank you, everybody. In the name of the Darwins, the Darwin, the Dawkins, and the Christopher Hitchens, science bless you. Have a great day, folks. Oh, I almost forgot that this is from my dad. I never really got to talk about this, but the reason we say be good to yourselves and each other at the end of each episode is because it's what my dad says at the end of his shows and his speeches. All right. So be good to yourselves and each other. Poof.